Good afternoon. This is Chris Brecher with Brecher Trading. Today we're going to talk about scanning for bear flags, but I wanted to go over a couple of things first. Number one, we're going to go over the overall market a little, just like I do in the nightly videos. Number two, I want you to know that Brecher Trading is coming up soon, real soon, in the next 10 days. We're going to have the normal stuff you're used to from me. The nightly videos, the morning chat, the forum, and you name it. We're going to have, it's not going to be silver and gold. It's going to be basic and premium. And it's going to be, it'll probably be $97. That'll include everything you're used to, plus at least 2 hours of chat a day. So just keep that in mind. It should be coming out in the next 10 days. As the easiest thing to do is go to chris@brechertrading.com and shoot me an email, and I'll put you on the update list. And you'll be first dibs on the videos also. So just keep that in mind. So first you're going to see a little black background here because I'm not perfect with PowerPoint. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of the market today. The first thing I want to show you is the overall market. I know it's still holiday trading, relatively light in here. But I wanted you to realize we are seeing some divergences. But I want to show you something first on how you can't get too frustrated with the market. As you see on here, this little ATR trailing stop didn't work. These keep getting you out, even though you are seeing a stair step, which is nice. The idea is, why aren't these working? Because you have to go to the longest time frame that's possible. I mean, you could go to a monthly, but I don't go to monthly. But look at the weekly is above everything. What that means is every time on a daily it gets oversold, it's probably going to go straight up, like you've been seeing almost every one of these down here. Every oversold is followed by a sharp rally because the long-term trend is up. On the other hand, there is money to be made two ways in here. If you want to go and short in here and stop yourself up here, short here, stop yourself here. Here, I'm not sure what you do except say this is a ledge like I showed you last week. Short right here and stop yourself here. That's a nice tight stop, and that was good for 30 points. Luckily, I posted that to everyone last week in here. Now, the thing is, there are definitely things to do. That's one way. I told you there are two ways. The other way is to find stocks that already look weak. This Google worked fantastic. I mean, my goodness, look at this ledge that I showed you on a 15-minute chart. It just went away. Sorry about that. Look at that right here. That worked perfect. I told you it measured about 10 points, and voila, I went 10 points right to support. I'm telling you, these things work really well. The problem is when you're in a massive uptrend, you better get out after the expectation is met and it's support. You don't stay around too long. Now, if you wanted to do a butterfly when it was down here, a put butterfly, and it gets down to around 1060 on a Tuesday, by all means, you could start paring it down by then. You still might make money because of the time premium decay, but just know you had the right direction. Take your probably 80% profit and go to the next stock. That's the way I look at it. But these support and resistances work unbelievable. But so there are two ways. One is to take that NASDAQ, like I said, and take that stair step. Or the other is to find stocks that already have weak patterns. So if the NASDAQ has a little hiccup like it did, those will be the first stocks to go down. So those are the two ways I do them now. The next thing you're going to want to watch in here is the ESs. So you see the ESs were up all of one while the NASDAQ was down 23. NASDAQ down because Apple, that iPhone X, I know I'm supposed to say iPhone 10, but it looks like iPhone X to me. The idea is that the phone's over $1,000, number one. Number two, I have an iPhone 6. I just don't see that much of a difference for me to go and fork out that kind of money. But number three, I am livid that I have to sit here and hear that my phone has been slowed down because a battery in 2 years degrades enough that they intentionally slow down your phone. Like I posted earlier today on StockTwits and Twitter, if Samsung doesn't do that, then I'm going to Samsung because that's outrageous. I think that affected the stock more than slow sales. I think a lot of people are feeling the same way I do, which is that they feel like they've been had. But the idea is that Apple pulled down the NASDAQ. We're finally starting to get a little bit of a divergence. Go and put the ESs on a 2-hour chart on the left. I'm going to take off the futures on the far left. I've been warning you that this still could be a bull flag of the ESs. So you have to measure it against other things. You can measure it against the German DAX. You can measure it against the Chinese market. But I like watching it at its basic form against the NASDAQ. As you see, the NASDAQ sold off, and I actually posted this earlier today. It sold off right to support. These support and resistances really do work. It's really exciting to see that. What happened is the NASDAQ is not beyond the point of no return where this bull flag on the left won't work. What I mean by that is if the NASDAQ plows through 64.30, 64.25 to the next support level, which is 63.75 and then lower, finally that point of no return is going to pull the SPX down. But we're not there yet. As you see, this held its support. We have a little divergence, but not enough. As you see, this structure could still be bullish for all I know. So I am not sure yet which way to lean. Because of that, I'm not going to do long-term swing trades to the downside. And if I even thought of shorting, I'm probably going to just short intraday. I just don't have enough reasons yet. And like I said, if this on the left holds in this area, and this on the right does fall apart, I'm going to have enough time to probably be able to short something, so keep that in mind. So those are the two things in there I'm looking at. Let me give you an overall perspective of some other things. Russell, and I'm going to put this on two different charts. We're going to put a Russell on a daily and an hourly. As you see, there's nothing in here that looks bad yet. Could this be a top? Well, it could be. But when the daily and the weekly look so good, you don't just blindly go short. You got to wait for these breaks. Look at how far it's gone up. You'll have more than enough chance to make money if it falls apart. So definitely keep that in mind. Sorry about the bang on the mic. I wasn't sure the mic was on or not. The one that I find interesting is the bonds. I find that if the bonds, and let me tell you, it's all about probability. I don't care what Jeffrey Gundlach says. I don't care what CNBC says. When they're this oversold, the probability is you aren't going to make money immediately chasing the downside, as you see here. It's always on how does it work off the oversold condition. If it works it off by only going to this 152.05, 152.14 level, and then this daily on the left gets back to the zero line, I'm going to look to short it because then it will have enough energy to be able to have the next leg down. But right now it's oversold. I'm not going to go near it yet. But that's what I'm watching in bonds. Bitcoin, I called it selling off. I called the support. I called the rally. What do I mean by that? Every single bubble always has a sharp sell-off and then a test to the highs. I'm not saying this is the top, but I am saying that when you're in a massive uptrend and you get massively oversold, you're going to have a big old bounce. What do I mean by bubbles? Go to the NASDAQ in 2000. Same kind of thing happened. In fact, let me see if I could do that for you. We're going to go to style. We're going to go to daily. And let's see how far back I could go. This is sort of exciting when you can do this. Let me see. I probably can't go back all the way. But it definitely had this test to the highs back in... let me go to a weekly. I'll show you. There we go. Watch the 2000, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about in here. Look at that bubble burst. And then what happens? You get that test of the highs. It failed miserably, but you always get that massively sharp rally. Let's see if I can make this clear for you. Let's see if it'll let me go back so I could show you. That's better. See that big old sell-off? See that rally? Now, want to watch something absolutely positively fascinating? Go look at Bitcoin on a daily chart. Well, actually, that's not going to work. Let's go put it on a 2-hour chart. That's not going to work. How about a GPTC for you? There you go. Why am I doing that? Because Bitcoin has not been publicly traded on as a future. So just show this. Notice anything in here? You sure do. Look at that on the left. Look at that on the right. See the spike down? See the spike down? Let's see how much this reclaims of the sell-off. So just keep that in mind in there. Fascinating on how history repeats itself. So just keep that in mind in there. I'm going to be watching it closely coming up. So getting back to it in here. Let me link these in here. Let me put a daily chart back. And what I want to show you is I'm going to be watching the bonds. I'm going to see on how they work off the oversold condition. No doubt about it. When I don't want to look at 24-hour charts, I'll go and look at the SPY. I'll look at the SPX. You might say you could change the time frame on the ESs. I really don't like doing that and messing everything up, so I'll just leave it like this. And as you see, it could still go either way. NDX, that looks a little different than the NASDAQ futures. But like I said, it stopped at support. And as long as it stopped at support, you got to just respect the upside until proven otherwise. If I see another leg down, I'm all for getting short. Don't get me wrong in here. Gold, this was a layup trade. I'm very excited about it. My theory was the second that Bitcoin started to falter, finally gold would go up. Why would gold go up? Think of it if you're in the Ukraine. I went through this last year when Bitcoin was 400. You're sitting there with Bitcoin, tanks are rolling in to the city, or let's say theoretically, taking over your bank. You're not going to put your money in gold. You're going to put it in Bitcoin. You put it on a little flash drive or wherever you put it, Bitcoin, Coinbase, whatever, and you have it. The problem is when Bitcoin goes from 418,000, you're like, it's not time for me to start putting myself in Bitcoin now. I'll go into what hasn't gone up yet. So you go back and you get in gold. And that's why the second that Bitcoin faltered, gold had this huge surge. I was mentioning that 2 weeks ago that was going to happen. What do I think of gold now? Well, now it's finally getting overbought right at resistance. But it was a good call while it lasted in here. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to be watching the gold and the bonds, the NASDAQ, the ES, and one last thing on this when I go over the indexes. Crude oil. I am so thrilled that I posted a swing trade video on Saturday saying to buy the basic material stocks, that the basic materials, which includes the oil stocks, were looking like inverse head and shoulders. Because of that, that makes me think that oil was going to resume its uptrend, and it worked beautifully. One of the stocks I mentioned in there, WLL, nice move today, up 6%. See this up here? 6.36%. And you had a chance on the opening. It opened unchanged. Very exciting to how that worked. So what else am I watching in here? Well, like you said, and I said, the NASDAQ is trying to roll over, but we're not sure it is. But I'll show you little cracks in the armor that I'm starting to see. There's two parts of an index. One is when it sells off. One is the transition point. The transition point is when the SPX goes from a massive uptrend and then rolls over under everything. And that's where a lot of people try to buy dips because it's worked and it has the transition. That's a very tough thing for traders to find that transition. They're always trying to pick the top. The idea in there is you might miss the beginning, but you'll make the next part. But are there things in the SPX under the surface that are giving you hints that there might be a transition? Well, I'll give you one. Go to scan. What I'm doing in here is I found Boeing. And I want you to see this. I hardly ever show the squeeze scan. The squeeze. I don't use the squeeze just to squeeze. I find like this. See on how that squeeze to the upside, that was the top. I don't use it for that. I use a squeeze to scan for contraction and volatility, i.e. look for bull and bear flags. Now, it didn't show up on here on an hourly in Boeing, but look on how Boeing, which has been a massive winner, is forming a little bear flag on an hourly. That got me to thinking, It's forming a bear flag under the ATR trailing stop. Not a squeeze, but it got me thinking maybe there are stocks that look like that have showed up as a squeeze. So this was my idea. Go to a scan. These are free on Thinkorswim. I went and took the last at 20 that there's an hourly squeeze because I'm looking for hourly bear flags. I'm looking for the ATR trailing stop to be under the hourly. And I'm looking for volume over 600,000. That's just personal preference. And it popped out 112 stocks. You have to understand that because you're doing an hourly hourly bear flags like Boeing, you have to be real careful because they're not under their ATR trailing stop on a daily. If I trade these, I'm going to trade them ultra short term because I don't have enough reasons for a long-term swing trade. So just keep that in mind. So I went into this scan. It ended up being 112 stocks. Right here. What I did is I saved that as a watch list just to be lazy today and saved it as a watch list and called it 112. And this is what I want to show you, that if the market does roll over, these will probably be the stocks that go down first. I'm going to sort them by more expensive to less. So on the left is Lockheed Martin. Look at these stocks. I mean, they're massive bull markets. And look what's going on. They're starting to form bear flags. Go to Northrop. 2 defense stocks. That's ironic. CMG. And what's funny is some of my friends, we were looking at another one. We were looking at Alibaba. Alibaba looks just awful on a daily chart. And somebody said, well, you know, that's twice Boeing. So one's BA, one's BA, which is funny. But this right here could be a little bear flag in a big bear flag. Just keep that in mind in Alibaba. Plus on a daily, that already doesn't look so great. But let's go back over. 3M. Here's a one in here. That another one that looks pretty good. But on an hourly, not so good. And this becomes interesting because you could short it right here and stop yourself right there. That's a beautiful thing on a $200 stock to be able to have a 50-cent stop. I love stuff like that. So just try to use this. I know I've talked for 17 minutes, but there, Costco, Adobe. Not into it. It doesn't have the same kind of bearish structure, so to speak. Buffalo Wild Wings is in there because it was taken over. Every time I hear Stryker, I think of airplane because I think the corporal was Stryker. But the idea, every time I hear Stryker, I say that. Go through these, though. Go through a scan of 112 of these stocks that have a squeeze, and you'll see that some of them really look like bear flags a lot more than other ones. What you're looking for is something that forms that, and if it broke, it doesn't have a lot of support underneath. I'm not sure CBOE is the best example because it has all this schmutz in this area. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. But I'm going to be going through all these, and I'm going to try to find the ones that look like the best layups to the short side if the market short sells off. Here's a good one right here. Log me in. Look at that bear flag. Look at if it breaks that, it breaks this thing on the left. And then there's no support to 108. Now, before I say anything, what's the only reason I wouldn't do this? You guessed it. It's already oversold. I would love to see this for 2 or 3 days, just twerk around this area and work off this oversold and get back to the 0 level. If it does that, I'm going to be all over shorting it. So I hope you've liked this video. These are the examples of the nightly videos we're going to have on the site. This is going to be free for all of about a week. After that, we're only going to have like free Friday videos. Besides that, the rest of it is only going to be premium content on the site. So I hope you've liked this video. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great night.